Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening. Welcome back to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. My name's Todd Sullivan. Joining me as always is Oren Barter.
Hello.
And today we are covering the final 100 pages of Margret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. Gulp.
I can't sip. I'm drinking out of I'm having cranberry cinnamon cider. And it is very difficult to slurp out of a glass thing like this.
Sounds good. I think I've had that before.
It's actually really good.
I am drinking a quintessential summer beverage in the middle of November.
Right.
I picked up a case of White Claws. So
What's White Claws?
it's another one of those low carb soda and vodka beverages, but whereas a lot of them have 0 sugar, the White Claws have 1 gram of sugar, which compared to like a Nude or a Neutral or, you know, some of those that have 0 grams of sugar, White Claws have so much more flavor just because of that 1 gram of sugar. Like between 0 and 1 makes a lot of difference.
Especially if you're used to 0.
Yeah.
If you're used to 0, then you go to 1. Major, total life-changing experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're used to 20 grams of sugar in your beverage and then you go to a White Claw, you might not have such a good time. But even though they're sort of well known for the summer, breezy, beach drinks, with the claws in their name, I feel like they could come up with like a winter Santa Claus kind of package as well. But
eggnog.
Eggnog White Claws, yeah.
Eggnog White Claw, why not? Yeah, let's just
cranberry White Claw.
Actually, okay, that's way better than I was joking about the eggnog because carbonated eggnog would just be awful.
Yeah, that's true. Cranberry, mandarin orange.
Hey, that's right.
What else? What else would be
fucking cinnamon?
Fucking cinnamon.
I don't know. I'm just throwing shit out there now.
Yeah. Before we get into discussing the last part of our book, I wanted to stop and draw attention to something that I don't think we talk about enough. Maybe we've never talked about it at all, which is the fact that our intro and exit music that people listen to every time they sit down to enjoy this fine podcast isn't just something we downloaded off of some website somewhere with royalty-free music. It was created by Mr. Oren Barter, who is sitting across the virtual desk from me. And I love our song. I love the way it introduces, the kind of podcast we are. And just thank you so much for your creativity and for all the things you have done to help bring this podcast to life.
Finally, some fucking recognition.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I have a lot of fun doing this. It kind of broadens my creative horizons a little bit. Something I haven't done before is vocal, or not like vocals, like music vocals, but just like speech. Right? It's a different animal altogether. And hopefully I'm getting a little bit better every time, except for I guess that would be not the last episode from here, but 2 episodes ago when I was recording.
Oh, we had another mic mishap, yeah.
I was recording with the microphone from my computer, which was no bueno. At least it wasn't across the room this time. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's one of those things that we should have learned how to avoid that by now, and yet.
And I was even I don't know if I commented to you or not, but I was looking at my computer screen because I like to watch the WAV file being created as I'm recording, and I'm like, there's something wrong about this WAV format, right? Like it just had some weird peaks and valleys, and it just didn't seem right. But I was like, hey, maybe I cranked the microphone. I was thinking, hey, maybe I'm actually getting a proper recording this time. But I was so very wrong.
Yeah, I can't remember if you mentioned it the day of recording. I remember telling you the next day when I sat down to edit, that your audio was awful. And you were like, I knew something was wrong because I could see something in the waves.
Before we get too far ahead, I did want to actually mention I am drinking the cider, but it's almost done. I shared that one with the girlfriend. I also got a beer from Red Collar Brewing, which is in your hometown.
Right here in Kamloops, yeah.
In Kamloops, called Squash Gordon, which is a lovely...
Oh, so that would be like a gourd, like a pineapple, what the hell am I talking about? Some kind of a gourd, pumpkin-y kind of thing.
I'm assuming it's a pumpkin. It looks like a pumpkin, but yeah, because pumpkin's a squash and it's also a gourd, so Squash Gordon. I thought that was a great pun.
That's a great name, yeah.
I know how much you hate puns, so...
I'm growing to appreciate them a bit more, I guess.
Okay. I'm going to crack that right now.
Yeah, it's too bad. You should have let me know you were going to be drinking that. I would have gone and tracked that down because I'm sure I could probably find it hopefully easier than you can.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I got it yesterday. I should have mentioned something, yeah.
All right, so without further ado, let's dig into the final chapters, chapters 31 to 46 of The Handmaid's Tale. So, I mean, if my notes are correct, we've only got like 4 sections here, right? We've got Jezebels, which covers 31 to 39, Night, which covers chapter 40, Salvaging, which covers chapter 41 to 45, and Night, which covers chapter 46. Jezebels is pretty long, though. I have a lot of notes about Jezebels, and even some quotes I wanted to read from the book. The first thing that I have a note of from Jezebels has to do with how the Jews were dealt with following the change in society in Gilead, because of course, as it becomes this entirely Christian society, that's not going to be one that's welcoming of those of the Jewish faith, and so basically they were called the sons of Jacob, and they were given a choice to either convert to Christianity and remain in Gilead, or they had to set sail to return to Israel.
Yeah.
Which seems like, compared to what they did with, women who'd been married twice, is a slightly better alternative, or a slightly better, series of options, I guess. Although I guess this comes up in the context, too, of how they do find them, like, Jews that are still practicing in Gilead, and how they're sort of rounded up and executed for that.
Yeah. And also, might be jumping ahead a little bit, though, but there is another mention of this later in the book, but I'll talk about that when we get closer to that.
Okay. We also find out that amongst this network of women, be they handmaids or Marthas or whatever, that are sort of like working together to pass information amongst them, that there is a password. Mayday. I guess this all comes up whilst Alfred is hitting the marketplace of Glen, because my note has her returning home, passing Serena, and then Serena summons her where she's been knitting, and they talk a little bit about whether or not she thinks she's pregnant. She doesn't think she is. Serena suggests that maybe the commander isn't able to, and then suggests that maybe they could, try getting Fred knocked up with somebody else.
Which is like a huge, I don't know, that was mind-blowing to me. That, because Serena just seemed so cut and dry with the whole situation, right? Like, it was not the interaction I was expecting between the two.
Well, it's all very sort of just ordinary conversation for us. I mean, I wouldn't say ordinary conversation. It's pretty subtle, but at the same time, like, given how big an infraction that really technically is, to have it brought up again. But I mean, we're seeing already that this society, that has all of these structures and rules, is very blasé about breaking them, right? Like, the commander has been bringing Alfred into his, office at night pretty regularly, which isn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Now here comes Serena Joy with this whole, like, hey, maybe you should go fuck Nick and see if maybe he can make you pregnant.
Which we were talking about, like, are they going to get together?
Yeah. And I figured it was going to happen. I did not see it happening this way.
No, me neither. I thought they would do it in their own secret, like breaking the rules kind of way.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
in Serena Joy breaking the rules, like, you may as well go fuck the Guardian over there. Get yourself pregnant, get out of my fucking hair.
And so of Fred, she kind of weighs it all, because of course this is something that could work against her, if anyone found out that that's what she was doing. But at the same time, if she's not able to get pregnant, then that's something that's going to work against her too. So she's kind of between, a rock and a hard place. So she relents and agrees to go ahead with it. Serena offers to find a picture of Fred's daughter.
Yeah, that was nutty.
Yeah. So much kind of interesting stuff that is revealed just from that like, the daughter's still alive, which is great to know. But also that, like, Serena knows where the daughter has obviously been aware for some time where the daughter is, and
basically knows who this woman is who's in her house. She probably knows what happened to Luke. She probably, she definitely knows where her daughter is and who her daughter is. Like, yeah.
And then, as sort of a thank you, I guess, Serena gives Fred a cigarette, which is, awfully generous of her. And then tells her, go get a match from Martha. She goes and gets a match. I mentioned this because I took these notes down because I assumed the match was going to be, important later on.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Spoiler, it's not. But I think that's probably the intention there too, is to, I guess there were other things like you were talking about last episode, the gardening shears.
The shears, yeah, the shears never came up
else.
again. But they were like, she hinted at the shears so much, I was convinced those shears that something's going to happen. But nothing happened with them. Yeah.
So I guess it feels like there's this sense of, in spite of there being not necessarily escapes, but potential places where they could, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not attack, but like just push back, I guess. They never take them, maybe out of fear, maybe out of, just, yeah. So she does end up taking the match and hiding it in her mattress or, under her bed, to use later instead of smoking the cigarette.
Which must have taken a lot of willpower because she used to smoke.
Yeah, but it's been a few years too.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, once you've quit smoking for, I think, 3 years, you're pretty clean.
Oh, okay.
So then she's off to visit the commander again. She notes that he has started drinking during their visits. Mm-hmm. She also notes that she has heard from Glenn that her commander is kind of fairly up there in the chain of power.
Right.
And there's two portions here that I wanted to read from the book.
Okay. This is chapter 32.
We are in 32, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So this goes, I guess this is a follow-up, I think, to something that had come up earlier about why they had made the changes that they did. Mm-hmm. And this is the commander sort of speaking to Fred. The problem wasn't only the women, he says. The main problem was with the men. There was nothing for them anymore. Nothing, I say, but there was nothing for them to do, he says. They could make money, I say, a little nastily. Right now, I'm not afraid of him. It's hard to be afraid of a man who is sitting watching you put on hand lotion. This lack of fear is dangerous. It's not enough, he says. It's too abstract. I mean, there was nothing for them to do with women. What do you mean, I say? What about all the porny corners? It was all over the place. They even had it motorized. I'm not talking about sex, he says. That was part of it. The sex was too easy. Anyone could just buy it. There was nothing to work for, nothing to fight for. We have the stats from that time. You know what they were complaining about the most? Inability to feel. Men were turning off on sex even. They were turning off on marriage. Do they feel now, I say? Yes, he says, looking at me. They do. So all of that female subjugation is just so that men can feel something.
Seems legit.
Right? Yeah, totally.
I actually made a note about I think it was around the same area, kind of the same conversation. Something that you had mentioned to me. I don't think it was on an actual podcast, but it was just when we were speaking between the two of us.
Mhm.
You had mentioned something about like a utopia and how a utopia has to be good for everybody involved.
Yeah.
You could probably explain that better again, if you wouldn't mind. And then I'll
Yeah, so it was this idea of, and it was during a podcast, but it was near the end of last episode, and it has been cut. So when you're creating a society, you need to make sure that it works for everyone, even if you don't know who you're going to be in that society, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to, create a society where like all the rich, powerful people are rich and powerful, and you like that because you're going to be one of the rich and powerful people. But what if you're going to be a homeless guy living under a bridge? Don't you want to try to create a society that's beneficial for them as well, because you don't know who you're going to be in this?
Right.
And I think I know which bit you're thinking about, because I highlighted that bit as well, which is kind of the commander admitting that maybe they didn't quite make a perfect society.
Yeah.
He says, you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs, is what he says. We thought we could do better. Better, I say in a small voice. How can he think this is better? Better never means better for everyone, he says. It always means worse for some.
Yeah. That last bit, that's what I had.
Yeah. And it's not true, but you can see that as that justification, right? He was in a position to create a new society that would be better for him. And if it's not better for any, other people, well, sucks to be them, I guess.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. That's just the reality of it, right?
That's just, you get to be one of the broken.
Yeah. That's his way of justifying his own actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pravaganza. Pravaganza is the next thing. And I'm so glad we got to see what that was.
Well, we've seen birthmobiles. We've seen the black vans.
Yeah, so all the things that came up really early on that we were like, what are these things? They're cool names, but will we find out? We've pretty much found out what they all are. Pravaganza, she's off to the Pravaganza where they see Janine, who has apparently already been sent off to another commander. Mm-hmm. It sounds like the baby she had didn't make it. Someone said it was a shredder.
Yeah, and that was like, what?
Yeah. I don't know exactly what that means, but it does feel like, it's the implication that like this baby didn't work out, so we toss it in the shredder.
That really does. That's the way I took it. And I'm wondering if like it was alive, but just there was something wrong with it. And which is so much worse than abortion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that one stuck with me.
They talk also about how they think Janine blames herself because she lost 2 children now and apparently lost one from before.
And thinking that it's because she was sinful because she used a doctor for this one.
Right. But I also thought it was interesting how Fred thinks about how, in blaming herself, she's also creating some kind of meaning in her life, right? Mm-hmm. Like if everything is so meaningless that at least in saying, oh, it's because of something I did, it gives you it means you had a little bit of control somewhere. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was kind of a creepy idea, that like you would cling to something that profoundly negative just to have any kind of meaning in your existence.
Your existing existence.
Your existing existence. And then we have a quick flashback to the Red Center, which is what it was called. They finally got the name, Red Center.
What did you call it before? You were close.
The Red School, I think.
Yeah, you were close.
I was close. Where we see Janine went a little bit loopy back then, and Moira had to like slap the shit back into her senses. And then there's a section here that it's not really super relevant to the story, but I wanted to read it because it's another one of those sections that show Margret Atwood's her ability with words. Mm-hmm. This is right at the start of chapter 34, where there's the commander in charge of the Pravaganza comes in at the start of at the front of the room. He's dressed in his uniform, and Margaret Atwood writes, "It's hard not to be impressed, but I make an effort. I try to imagine him in bed with his wife and his handmaid, fertilizing away like mad, like a rutting salmon, pretending to take no pleasure in it. I just love that idea of a rutting salmon.
Well, I mean, salmon do die after fertilizing eggs, don't they?
There you go. Not so much the commanders, though, sadly.
No. There was a couple of things in... one thing in particular in chapter 33 that I wanted to touch on before we jump too far ahead here.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, because I think this is 34 now.
Yeah, so page 236, I think these are the actual pages of the book, not just the pages of my e-reader. But we had talked about like a lot of what, the birthmobile, the Pravaganza. There was another one that came up, which was the Unwoman. And you had talked about the colonies possibly being Canada.
Yeah, it's not.
But, no, it's not, yeah. But they do say something here. Then they burn you up with the garbage like an unwoman. So it sounds like not every unwoman gets sent to the colonies, or the colonies. I did find out what that was later on, but when I read this, I was thinking maybe the colonies was like, when your dog gets sent to live on a farm, right?
Oh, I see.
We're gonna send her to the colonies, or like that. Did you ever watch Urinetown, that musical I was in?
No, I didn't.
Right, like anybody who broke the law in that kind of world was sent to Urinetown, which was really they were just killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought maybe that was what an unwoman and what the colonies were. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up before we jumped ahead. I found that interesting.
We do find out what the colonies are, and it's worth noting that being burnt up might actually be a better option than going to the colonies.
Yeah.
So we find out that, as is to be expected, I guess, Pravaganzas and most things, like salvagings as well, as we'll find out later, they're not universal things, right? So there's a women's Pravaganza and there's men's Pravaganzas. And women's Pravaganzas are for weddings, essentially, where angels who have, I guess, survived the battlefield come back to meet the women that they are going to be married to by arrangement. Whereas apparently men's Pravaganzas are to celebrate military victories. Mm-hmm. We find out that Ovglen knows that Fred has been seeing the commander.
She knows
unofficially.
A lot of shit.
Yeah.
She has a lot of information about a lot of people. But
we also gradually find out that she's kind of connected to the underground. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, she encourages Fred to try to just find out whatever she can from the commander, get him to reveal anything that maybe they can use. Mm-hmm. I had another quote here too, and again, this is more about how society's improved since the forming of Gilead. "We've given them more than they've taken away," said the commander. "Think of the trouble they had before. Don't you remember the singles bars, the indignity of high school blind dates, the meat market? Don't you remember the terrible gap between the ones who could get a man easily and the ones who couldn't? Some of them were desperate. They starved themselves thin or pumped their breasts full of silicone, had their noses cut off. Think of the human misery." So it's better now.
Well,
better now.
I mean, that's the thing. And I think that's something that Margret Atwood does really well, is she does bring up issues that were relevant and still are relevant in our society. The excess, the violence, the over-sexuality, this need to be perfect, this need to be important, all those things. But then she kind of with this whole Gilead and the way that it functions, she shows how you can end up in a really bad place if you start to remove all of these freedoms and these dreams and these hopes and things like that too, right? I think that she isn't saying that everything in our society is good, but I think with this book, she kind of colludes to the fact that, if we're too strict, things are going to be just fucking awful, right? And I don't know if she means that there's a middle ground, or if she means that everything's fine, carry on.
I mean, I think it certainly it sucks that not everyone can find a date. I am currently single. In case there's anyone listening who wants to send me a message, but I don't know if the solution to that is to like force people to marry someone.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
So I sort of I still oppose the commander's argument there. I don't think he's got it quite right. And then the commander, I don't know if it's in that same visit. I think it might be a different one. Alfred comes to the commander's room and he's like, I have something for you. And it's like this sequency, shiny, sexy outfit.
And now this is where I stopped taking notes because I got so into this book at this point.
Yep, me too.
I just read right up until the end, and I was like, "Oh, crap!" I didn't take any notes, but it was
that's
so
exactly
good.
Because I actually, until about 10 minutes before we recorded, I had absolutely zero notes for the salvaging section of this book, and I knew I couldn't go into talk about it without some. So I had to quickly flip through that chapter and sort of remind myself what had happened, because I was exactly the same place. Like from here through to the end, it was just like page turning.
Yeah.
So Fred puts on the outfit. The commander gives her makeup, which is basically just lipstick. Was there some kind of eyeliner too?
There was, oh crap, what was it? Yeah, he gave her lipstick. He gave her some, like, I think rouge or maybe some like cover up or something like that. But she used the lipstick to like do her cheeks. Oh, okay.
And then there was something for her eyes as well.
I think she complained that there was nothing for her eyes. Like there was no mascara or eyeliner or anything like that.
No, I remember her saying that she had fixed her eyes later.
Oh, okay. Well, fuck me then. No, I don't know. I don't have any notes on it, so I don't know.
And then she's got a pass.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're leaving the house. They're going somewhere. What the hell's going on? Hang on a sec. I'm opening a beer. I'm opening a White Claw.
So what did you think, like we know now where they went, but what did you think at the time?
I thought something pretty similar to what it was. I thought they were probably going to some kind of a party, some kind of a place where the commanders or the high ups would meet with I assumed they would all be smuggling out their handmaids.
Okay.
Which is not really the case.
See, I kind of thought that maybe they were going to a party and he was going to try and pass her off as his wife at first. That's what I thought. But then that doesn't really make sense because Serena would know about the party and she would not be okay with that. But
yeah, no, it would have to have
first. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they end up at this place that we find out a little bit later is called Jezebel's. It is a former hotel that Fred recognizes. She's been there before.
With Luke, when Luke was married to another woman and she was seeing him.
Right. Oh, I missed that part. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. A little bit of an echo there. Mm-hmm. And then they get there and it's filled with women in sexy outfits and drinks and drugs and everybody's having a great time. And then the commander goes off to get Fred a drink, and
yep.
I have one word note here, and it was just Moira! Exclamation mark.
Yeah.
We find Moira, who is dressed up in a Playboy bunny outfit, and
which is just so such a juxtaposition for her personality.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact too, though, that like it wasn't just like it's a Playboy bunny outfit, like. Margret Atwood had to, like, she described all the details because, of course, I guess either Fred had forgotten what they looked like or never knew. But like once all the details were described, anyone who was ever familiar with like the way the Playboy's bunnies dress was like, oh, that's totally what that is.
Maybe it was a copyright thing. Maybe she wasn't allowed to say it.
Maybe. And so Mora finally catches Fred's eye.
Yeah.
Gives her like the 5-minute signal that she used to give when they were in the Red Center to like, you got 5 minutes to meet us in the washroom. Mm-hmm. The commander comes back. Fred is like, can I go to the bathroom? Where is it? Off she goes. We have our exciting reunion between Fred and Moira, and then we hear the story of what happened after Moira's escape.
But we don't really hear the story. This part kind of messed with me a little bit, because the way that she's talking about it is she's leaving some people's names out on purpose.
Yeah.
That Moira did tell her, because she's like, these people might still be wanted. I don't want to, and I know that she's saying that to us in the terms of like, we're reading the book, but then it really made me question, like, okay, because she has hinted throughout the book that she's kind of talking to somebody, right? And sometimes she hints that she's just telling herself, she's making the story for herself to occupy her time and just so that she doesn't forget. And then sometimes she hints that she actually is speaking to somebody.
Well, so, I mean, do we, like, I guess at this point we can, touch very briefly on, because those questions are answered in the historical notes.
Yeah, they are.
So we might as well just, we find out at the end of the book in the historical notes that the entirety of the Handmaid's Tale was a recording that this person made likely after they had escaped from Gilead, because it was found, I believe, in a house in Canada.
No, right? It was found in Gilead.
Okay, I don't agree, but no, okay.
It was found in Gilead, because in the historical notes they talk about.
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
They're like, why didn't she do this when she was in? She most likely she went to Canada, and even in the historical notes, things seemed like super patriarchal. I can't say the word. You know what I mean?
Yeah, patriarchal.
Patriarchal, because they're like what did they call it? It was like the Underground Railroad. But they call it
the female road.
Female road, and then
or the frail road.
The frail road, and then everybody chuckled, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I mean, Gilead's gone, but people are still assholes. Okay.
But I think that's what they were calling it at the time of Gilead as well. That's not the name that came up for it after the fact. So
okay.
That's a naming convention that would have come out of the patriarchal society.
Right.
Yeah, and I got the sense because it was like. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about the historical notes, except to confirm that we do know that this is a recording. And it was a recording that was made essentially after the end of the book. So whatever she's telling here is from memory as well, which explains, I think, some of the times where she's like, this is how it happened, but, isn't how it happened. This is a recreation.
Yeah, she says that. She says that a few times. Like, this is just a recreation. I can't say for sure what the commander said or what I thought when he said that, but this is what I think I should have thought at the time. And yeah.
And that's what we get from Moira's story as well. But
we got another thing from Moira's story, which was interesting, which was the hiding of people's names and being very careful in recreating Moira's story. She hasn't been super careful about anything else.
Well, this is because the people that so Moira walks out of the Red Center dressed as one of the ants, and then she walks for like practically a day to try to get to the house of some Quakers that she remembers, because they had these lists of contacts among kind of the underground. That the different underground members, like they would memorize a portion of the list and then they would destroy the list. And so she remembers the name of this one Quaker, or the address of this one Quaker, travels out to their house, kind of in the hopes that she won't get turned in. The Quakers offer to help get her to another house where they can kind of smuggle her out on this, underground female road, frail road. And it's this sort of interconnected houses on the frail road where they have to be really careful.
Chauvinist.
They have to be really careful about who they identify and who they don't, because each one only knows the next one in line. And that's a security measure so that if one of them gets knocked out, they can't take out the whole railroad.
Right.
But it also means that if any one of them gets taken out, it can take a while to reconnect that missing link. And Moira almost got out. She made it as far as, was it Maine, I think?
I'm not sure.
Somewhere along the ocean. She was supposed to be heading out to Canada by boat one night when, as they left the house that she was in, they were caught And she was arrested, not sent back to the Red Center, and instead sent to Jezebel's, where, basically you could, live for a few years there, banging the important commanders and also foreign dignitaries who came by Gilead. And you only had to work at night. There were all sorts of drugs and alcohol, and during the day, nobody cared what you got into. So lesbianism was perfectly fine there. So it seemed like Moira was, I don't want to say she was having a good time, but it did seem like she was acknowledging that maybe this was sort of the best place that she could find
in this situation. But let's also make a note that this is the same government that's imposing all of these strict rules of Fred and all these other people as well. And it's just because it's in their interest for trade, for information, for whatever, that this sort of thing goes on. And
it's also something the commander says at one point about how nature requires that men have variety. Right? So it's not so much that this is them breaking the rules of society. It's simply, this is something that men have to do. Men can't be connected to one woman forever. It's just not natural.
Right, but women don't have any kind of natural thing that can't be forced down.
Certainly not.
Yeah, no, it's just guys like, oh yeah, we can't fight nature. You guys can.
Yeah.
You guys can. I guess. I guess their thought is, well, a woman's nature is to give birth.
Exactly. A woman's nature is to create life, to nurture life, give birth, and so again, their society is just helping allow women to do what is in their nature. And that's pretty much all I remember about Moira's story, and it's all based on memory because I only have the one Moira note to go on.
Well, yeah, I think like she really did go in depth about the situation because they met a couple of times.
Yeah.
And but through Fred's recount of the conversation, like I said, she's really careful about not giving names, not giving too many specifics, just in case this information gets into the wrong hands. And that's when I really started where is she saying this from? Like she's saying there's a position in time now, I believe, where she is telling this story. And it was really interesting to get that answer in the historical notes, because where the book ends, I mean, we're not quite there. I won't touch that yet. But
yeah,
if it just ended there, so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so then we're pretty much done with the Jezebel section, and we go into part 13, Night, which is chapter 40. Fred returns from Jezebel's. It's quite late, but she's got even more stuff to do tonight, because I guess she wasn't very good at scheduling. This is the night she needs to meet up with Nick and try to get impregnated.
So this is the night where she's got to fuck Nick.
Yeah. So she gets home, Serena comes to her door, knocks on the door, brings her out, sends her out, into the garden, is like, go out there, take a right, knock the door, he's be waiting. She does all that, and then they fuck.
But she takes 3 different explanations as to how it happened, which were all very similar.
Yeah.
But not exactly the same. So
not exactly the same. But it's clear that it's a different experience than when she's with the commander, that this is...
Oh, yeah.
It's more, it's obviously more... Even though she's been told to do this by Serena Joy, there's a sense of her own volition in this, right?
I think she's been wanting to do this for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Ever since... I mean, she was interested in him when he whistled at her when he was cleaning the car, when she was like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. Holy crap, this guy's bold. But then when they met at, in the middle of the night there, when she was sneaking around and they had that moment, right? Yeah.
So yeah, they have a little boink boink, bow chicka bow wow. And then we can get to part 14, salvaging. Chapter 41 to 45. And some time has passed at this point, and we discover that Fred and Nick have been...
is?
Well, yeah, she seems likely pregnant, but more importantly, we've discovered that Fred and Nick have been kind of hooking up on the reg.
Mm-hmm.
We also find out that Glenn is continuing to bug Fred to try to get info from the commander. Specifically, she wants her to like break into his office in the middle of the night and steal some shit, whatever she can get her hands on. Fred is reluctant to do this, and it seems like there's maybe kind of an erosion in their relationship.
Well, I think there's an erosion of Fred's disdain for the situation that she's in, because she has found something that she enjoys.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Something that's her own. She's found Nick. And I think that might be enough for her to be able to continue on in this situation. And she's not interested in bringing it down at this point, you know?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely, like, you do feel that kind of strain between of Fred and of Glenn, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then in the next chapter, there's a bell ringing that signals a salvaging. Something else we heard about earlier, and now we're going to find out what that is.
Super fucked up.
Super fun. Super good times. It's an interesting word choice because, okay, so what a salvaging is, to cut right to it, is it's an execution.
Yeah.
In this case, there are 3 women who are being hung. 2 of them are handmaids, and one of them is a wife.
Yeah. Now,
I was trying to wrap my head around what element of this was the salvaging. Were they salvaging, like, in executing these people, was it an attempt to sort of salvage their souls from the crimes they committed? Is it about salvaging their society by eradicating these negative elements?
I feel like, yeah. Do you have another one?
No, those are sort of the 2 big ones that came to mind, and it's not...
I feel like it wouldn't be salvaging the society, because that would show too much weakness, and I think that this whole society is built around this image of strength. It's not that we need to salvage this society, we need to salvage these people.
By making them pay.
Yeah, it was pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And then the guy, are you going to talk about
that? So we're not there yet, because I did want to mention one other thing that I thought was interesting. That so first of all, Aunt Lydia is the one who comes out and is like the master of ceremonies for the salvaging, which Fred was sort of shocked by to see Aunt Lydia there. And normally when they do a salvaging, I guess they would announce what crime it is that the people being executed had committed. But I guess what happened is that after every salvaging, instances of those crimes would increase afterwards. Mm-hmm. So they decided they were no longer going to do that, and so they're just executing them.
See, and this is a phenomenon that we actually see in our everyday lives as well. Like the media sensationalizing suicides, for instance, creates an increase in suicides in those demographics.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably not every single time, but same with school shootings, right? Sensationalizing school shootings.
No.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. The media plays a big role in kind of promoting, not on purpose, but
I can't think of any school shooting that happened immediately after another school shooting.
I wouldn't say immediately.
With any reason to think that it was prompted by the media coverage.
I wouldn't say immediately after. That's not what I'm saying. It's not. I'm not saying it's a complete cut and dry.
Right, but that is what's happening in the book. They're saying that there is a surge immediately following the salvaging.
Okay,
and it's and of Fred's. I think she kind of. Her theory is that it reminds people what they're capable of. Like what everyone is so locked into the routines and so locked into the rules of order that they've forgotten that it is conceivable for them to like punch a commander in the face or stab the commander's wife, or like you can act out. And and having, in spite of the fact that these women are being executed for these crimes, it's a reminder of actions that you can take to assert your inherent freedom. And I thought that was really interesting that, even though that you'll be executed at the end of it, this whole idea that at least I will be free for a few minutes or a few days prior to that execution, because now I'm reminded of the fact that I can. I thought that was interesting. And then once the salvaging is done, everyone is about to go home, but there's an exciting follow-up. There's it's almost like a dessert after a nice meal. We get what is called a particution. This is another one of these fantastic names.
Well, this is the first time we've heard this one, though.
This is the first time we've heard about it, but this might actually be my favorite name.
This is so bad.
And I want to point out that this is a reference to the historical notes when they talk about the particution, that the name, they suspect the name was inspired by this this exercise program from the 80s. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am not. Okay, fill me in.
Participation.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking hell, I laughed out loud when I read that in the historical notes. It was like, holy, because of course Margret Atwood is Canadian, so, here's this reference.
That was the whole, get your body moving thing, right? The
Yeah. Participation ended up inspiring the particution mass execution. Yeah, hilarious. So anyway, here's what a particution is. They bring in this. Was it are they generals? Is that what they're called?
I don't know, but I just can't believe I didn't make that connection.
The low-level security people, guardians.
Guardians, yeah.
So they bring in this guardian. He's got a bag on his head. He's had the shit beat out of him. He smells like vomit and shit. And he's a criminal he's accused of raping 2 handmaids and ending the pregnancy of one of them. And then, so all of the handmaids have made a circle, and he is deposited into the center of the circle. And when Aunt Lydia blows the whistle, all of the handmaids can do whatever the fuck they want to him until she blows the whistle again, and then they have to stop. And basically, she blows the whistle, everybody goes in and starts kicking the shit out of this guy. Fred is appalled by all this and keeps her distance. And she's kind of surprised to see Glenn go in.
Well, she took the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when Glenn comes back and Fred is like, what the fuck were you doing? Glenn says, he might have been one of us. So I basically kicked him in the head, knocked him out to put him out of his misery.
I think she said that he definitely was one of them.
I think it was more of a could have, but it really doesn't matter. The point being that, when she went in to participate, it wasn't in the same kind of gleeful violence as everybody else. It was like, I need, this is the one thing I can do to help this guy who's gonna die at the end of it no matter what. So at least I can hopefully render him unconscious through the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everybody goes home, and Fred is super hungry.
Because, nothing works up an appetite like
Particution.
You got to balance food and activity, working together for body and electricity.
You can't eat before a salvaging because otherwise, because what's her name? Janine
threw up. Yeah,
Janine was retching afterwards, and that was sort of a reminder of why you can't eat beforehand. So you come home pretty worked up and hungry. Fred is off to the market again. She bumps into Glenn, but it is Glenn 2.0. We have a different Glenn. And of course, Fred is like, what's going on? Where did Glenn go? And she wants to try to find out, but
she's scared.
She's scared.
But she kind of steps pretty pretty broadly. I mean, compared to her interactions with the original of Glenn, how careful she was. Like this time, she just jumped right into it.
Yeah, but I think to an extent, like that stems from the rapid, like it's a pretty rapid disappearance. Like this is the afternoon of the salvaging, so like she saw of Glenn that morning.
Yeah,
and in a span of like 3 to 4 hours, now there's a different of Glenn. So after they're done at the market, of Fred recommends or suggests that they visit the wall, where they go, and the 3 bodies from that morning are still hanging. Of Glenn says, "Let that be a reminder to us," which is one of those moments where of Fred could say one of 2 things. The correct answer is to say praise be, but if this of Glenn is maybe part of the underground, the response would be to say something like yes, as if to say, let us remember how we are being subjugated by men, right? Mm-hmm. And so she takes the risk and she says yes. And not really a response from of Glenn at that moment, though she notices like maybe a little bit of movement as if of Glenn had sort of stopped to look at her. As they continue to walk home, of Fred sort of continues to sort of ask questions about what might have happened to the former of Glenn. And she tries to sneak out the code phrase.
Mayday.
Yeah,
By
so
saying
she's like,
that they met in May.
yeah, it was the 1st of May even. I think they used to have a word for that. Something like May Day.
She's a terrible liar.
To which of Glenn says, "You ought to make an effort to clear your mind of such echoes," which of Fred takes as a warning of like, I know what you're trying to do here. It ain't gonna work with me. Mm-hmm. Y'all best stop while you're ahead.
Yeah.
But in those final moments, just before they go their separate ways, of the new of Glenn does kind of like lean into of Fred and tells her that the former of Glenn hung herself right after the salvaging because one of the black vans had come for her. Mm-hmm. And so of Fred is able to go home feeling weirdly, I don't want to say upbeat, but like it's better for her in that sense, because one of her concerns was that if of Glenn had been caught and questioned and tortured, they would then find out about of Fred and then they'd be coming for her. So the fact that of Glenn has been killed means that in theory, she doesn't have to worry a whole bunch. Except then she gets home and Serena Joy is waiting for her. Mm-hmm. With the sexy sequiny outfit that she wore out to Jezebel's. Serena's not happy, and
well, she knows because there was lipstick on the outfit.
Yes, well, not so much the outfit. I don't think, because I don't think she would have necessarily known about the outfit, but it was her cloak.
Oh, right.
It was Serena's cloak
right.
that of Fred wore over the outfit. I suspect that might have led her to maybe searching the commander's closet, searching his office, which would have led her to find the sexy bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then doesn't she say something like, just like the other one?
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm assuming this is what happened to the one before, because like way back when she became a Fred, she was like, well, what happened? Like, what happened to the other one? It feels like she's heading down the exact same path. All
right, now the final night.
The final fucking night. Holy
Part 14
shit.
and chapter 46.
It feels like this was a roller coaster of a ride. Like compared to Malcolm X, like the speed at which we got to the end of this book.
Yeah, well, I think it's almost 200 pages shorter. And again, we were going every week.
But the pace of this book just steadily increased. Like when we started, like everything was so slow. Like one day took, basically the first section of the book that we covered.
Yeah, the whole first section was just like, I'm going to buy chicken.
Let's talk about what it's like to go buy chicken for 30 pages. And then like this last section of the book where like everything happened, just like happened like that. But it's good because I didn't stumble on building this anything in my mind at all. Like it was all there, and walking through this last bit of story was just like walking through my own house, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it was really great. Sorry, we're not at the end. But I'm just saying,
we're not. We're not.
It was great.
So Alfred returns to her room, kind of contemplating her fate. Shit's going to go down. Doesn't know exactly what. She starts thinking about things that she could do as like a final hurrah. She starts considering taking out the match that she hid under the bed, lighting a fire. Wouldn't really destroy the house, but might do a little bit of damage.
Give her enough time to get a head start.
Die of smoke.
Oh yeah, no.
She was also thinking about dying of smoke inhalation.
Oh, that's right. She also thought about hanging herself the way that she was talking about with that hook.
Yeah.
Right.
Just lean forward But then, in the middle of the night, a black van suddenly arrives for her.
And she's not prepared. She's like, if I had more time, I could have done this, I could have done that.
Yep.
But she doesn't have time to prepare for this black van. And as we know, the black vans they've got eyes in them, and they mean. And
this is what came for of Glenn earlier that day as well, right? And so the boots on the ground up to her door. The door opens, and it's Nick.
It's fucking Nick.
What the fuck is happening? He's basically like, trust me. Come with me if you want to live.
What did he say? Like he said, it's Mayday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he said it. Yeah. He said, just go with him. It's Mayday.
Yeah. But what we know or suspect at this point in the story is that Nick is likely an eye. Mm-hmm. Is also apparently part of Mayday, but he also could be lying about the Mayday thing in order to convince Alfred to get into the van.
Right.
But out the door she goes with the troops from the van. As they leave the house, Serena Joy is like, "What's going on? Who are you guys? We didn't call you." They're like, "We have warrants," and she's like, "I want to see them." We're like, "F you, we don't have to show you nothing."
No, I don't. No, the commander asked for a warrant. They're like, "Do you have a warrant?" And the eyes were like, "None that we need."
Something like that. Yeah.
Basically, they skirted the issue. They're like,
"Yeah,
like you don't need to concern yourself with that." Like.
Yeah, that's what I said in my in my funky language there. And she does. Fred takes a moment to think, like, obviously, if the eyes have not been called by the commander and Serena Joy, they were intending, I think in her words, something like a more personal punishment for her. They weren't planning on turning her over. So in these final moments, she could choose to like grab onto the banister of the railing and refuse to go. Mm-hmm. And if the eyes have no authority over her, they'll have to leave, allowing her to stay under the relative safety of the commander. Mm-hmm. Or she can go with them into whatever the future may hold.
So, I feel that, like, if it was Mayday, and I think we kind of find out that it is, because if she's made these tapes, she didn't make these tapes during her time at the commander's house, right? So obviously she wasn't sent to be executed. Whether or not her escape was successful, we don't know.
With Alfred not knowing what is waiting for her, beyond the van, we get the final line of the book, which is, she's been brought out to the van, and so I step up into the darkness within, or else the light. Mm-hmm. And that's the end, except for the historical notes, which are an interesting read, but we are going to be saving those for the live episode. Don't want to talk too much about what we thought about the book, because that's also what the live episode is for.
Right? Yeah.
So I guess we should talk about when the live episode would be.
Let's do the math.
Let me look at my calendar here. We'll be talking about the historical notes as well as our overall take on the book during our live wrap-up episode, which will occur this time on November 29th, once again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Podbean. Of course, links will go out on Facebook prior to that, earlier that day. And hope if you've been listening thus far, you can come and join us for the live broadcast. There's a live chat. People can call in and talk to us directly. It's a fun time. We did that at the end of our coverage of the autobiography of Malcolm X. We didn't have a huge turnout, but it was fun to engage with the people that were there.
We had a bigger turnout than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Like, it was actually, I really enjoyed that live episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think the more that we're able to engage with people, I think the more fun those live episodes will be. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to being able to do yet another one and see who we can get to come out for it. What else can we tell you? We're on Facebook, as we just said, facebook.com/bandthingshappen. You can get find out when new episodes release there, as well as find a link to our Discord server. You can email us. It's bandthingshappen@gmail.com. We are also on Patreon, where you can support us financially if you like what we're doing. There are tiers covering everything from $2 a month all the way up to $500 a month if you are stupid rich and feel like throwing your money away.
$500 a month one?
Yeah, we do. This is like the second time.
Hand jobs?
This is the second time you've been shocked to discover that, even though I sent you the Patreon to look at before it even went live. So, sir, you're not doing your job.
All right.
That's.
But literally, if you do the 500, hand job's not out of the question.
No. So, technically, what you get for the $500 is that we will send you photos of whatever we buy with that money. We will text you photos. It's a chance to literally engage with us one-on-one. When we buy a cool new microphone, we'll send you a picture of us posing dumb faces next to the microphone, and that's it. That's what you get. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I can think of worse ways. Well,
Mike Zuckerberg. Hey, come on, help us out. Okay, that's I think all we got. Any final words, Oren?
No, I know we're going to talk about the book as a whole and the live episode. I just wanted to say on this one, I know it started out rocky for me, but I'm really glad that I read this book. It was a great read. Margret Atwood has such a way with words. Some of the descriptions, the similes, the way that it's great. It's great.
You heard it here first. Good morning. It's great.
It's a great book.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, I'm Todd Sullivan.
And I'm Oren Barter.
And go read a fucking book or something.